you want to be successful? Do you want to grow your business? Do you want to dominate the day? Then you're going to need big skip energy. Welcome to the Big Skip Energy Podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I am living the dream today. As you can see, I am not in my studio. I am coming from you live from beautiful Savannah, Georgia, from the Southeastern Credit Union Network annual meeting. That's a mouthful.
Wow. Wow, man. Savannah's beautiful. What a beautiful place.
Yeah, sure is. It sure is. So listen, go ahead and take a second and introduce yourself for me.
Sure. I'm Andrew Martin. I'm founder and president of Atlas Financial Strategies. We're a fee-based financial planning and business planning firm. I can kind of, if you'd like, if you think it's worthwhile, kind of dive into what a fee-based planner is and kind of the difference between that and the normal.
Go ahead.
Sure. The way that we work, we charge for our time and advice, right? So we're charging a flat fee instead of charging hourly or anything like that. And I think there's a big disparity. So the reason that I think that's important to understand is the majority of financial planners or advisors work under what's called the assets under management model, or AUM model. And that means that those advisors are kind of mostly, if not solely, focused on gathering and investing money from you and to manage that money and invest it for you and charge a 1% or 2% fee or whatever fee that they're charging to manage that. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a pretty big disparity between what the average person wants from their financial planner and what the majority of the industry currently provides. Because I think most people just want good, thorough, unbiased advice that isn't contingent upon them buying a product from the advisor or investing money with the advisor. They just want good, thorough, unbiased advice. And the majority of the industry is just not set up to deliver that. The majority of the industry is set up to, I'm happy to help you, but you got to have a bunch of money to give me to invest for you that I can manage and charge you the 1% and so on. Most advisors' ability to work with a client is contingent upon them having a bunch of money to invest and them being willing to give the advisor custody of those assets to manage. Where the way we work, if you want to self-manage your assets, great. If you want to invest in real estate, great. You want to invest in your business, great. It doesn't necessarily matter to us because you're paying us for our time and advice, irregardless of if you have assets to invest or how you want to invest those assets.
Okay. So if I'm also hearing you right, and keep in mind, I'm not a financial advisor, obviously. So sure. This may be a stupid question or something. The way that you are set up is actually beneficial to your average Joe on the street, right? Because who doesn't have $1 million to give you or more? It's a lot easier for folks that maybe don't have a giant net worth to get good sound advice.
Yeah. So from our perspective, what we like to say is it's democratizing financial advice, right? So for a lot of business owners, the majority of their wealth is in their business, as it probably should be, because from a return on capital standpoint, reinvesting back into your business is arguably one of the best returns on capital in a well-run business. And
that's a good caveat there.
Yeah. Wisely reinvesting back into a well-run business. But yeah, so even if you're a young person, if you have $1 million in your 401k, the advisor can't take custody of that money to manage for you, right?
Right.
Like you're not a good client for them either, unless you change jobs or retire and can give them that money to manage for you. But that person still needs financial planning help. But the majority of the industry isn't set up to provide that person help, right? Us charging, again, it costs money, some
sure. Nobody works for.
Yeah. But, again, the way we work lends itself to working with young professionals, with business owners, with real estate investors or people, it doesn't, again, we, for our clients who want us to, we'll manage their assets as well, but we only manage assets for maybe less than half of our clients. So that is something that we do and we do it well, but your ability to work with us is a contingent upon that. So my philosophy is I think you're going to see over the next 10 plus years, you're going to see kind of a change in the industry to kind of move more in that direction. Because if you look at how the industry used to run decades ago, it was stockbrokers, and the broker got paid 1% fee for buying and selling stocks within your portfolio. Yeah. And then people kind of got wise to, all right, there's a pretty inherent conflict of interest with that model because the advisor only gets paid to buy and sell, not the success of the portfolio. And then it moved to kind of the wrap fee where you're charging a 1% fee or 2% fee to manage the assets. So whatever assets you're managing, you're getting paid 1 or 2% or whatever the fee is for that. And that's more in line with the client's interest, but still, I think a pretty inherent conflict of interest there because let's say it made more sense for people to take that money and pay off debts, or take that money and invest in real estate, or take that money and put it in cash, or take that money and do something else with it that doesn't directly benefit the advisor. And the advisor isn't, it's against the advisor's best interest to tell you to do that. And then if you don't have a bunch of money to invest with that advisor, they can't work with you because it doesn't make business sense for them.
Right.
So it leaves a tremendous amount of people out from being able to get financial planning help at all. I think over the next 10 years, you're going to see a lot more of the industry move more towards this direction, because I just think it is the most conflict-free way to get and give financial planning advice.
I like it, man. Well, it's good. That's important information. So let's transition those into one of the main reasons I want you to come on the show. And that deals with the fact that the majority of my listeners are self-employed, they're business owners, commission employees, not your standard W-2 guys and girls, right?
Sure.
Talk to me a little bit about that, because I know that's a particular area of expertise for you. So how does that start off with that, man?
Yeah. So we'll kind of focus on the self-employed person, and then we'll switch to maybe the employed person, but maybe working on commission or something like that.
Variable income.
So, the self-employed person. So let's say real estate agents, or it might be mortgage lenders, depending on their setup with their company. But if you're self-employed, a 1099 employee or something like that, at some point, it might make sense for you to create an S corporation, right? And there's potentially reasons to do that. And again, this is really the caveat. The disclaimer here is it's really, I think everybody, most of the people on this call, especially if you're self-employed, should work with a good CPA. I'm not a CPA, so I'm not saying that to.
No, I think that's sound advice. People have specialties for a reason.
Right. So I think find a good CPA, and there's a big difference between great CPAs and not great CPAs. So find a great one, and then talk to them about when it makes sense for you to file as an S corp, or if it makes sense for you. But as a general, kind of some general rules, the whole purpose of filing as an S corp is that your income can go to the S corp, and then you can pay yourself a quote unquote reasonable salary from the S corp. And again, what that reasonable salary is a little subjective, and that's something for you and your CPA to figure out exactly what that would be. But then on that salary, on that W-2 salary that you're getting from the S corporation, you're going to pay income taxes on it, and you're going to pay the 15.3% self-employment taxes, FICA, Medicare, things like that.
Yep.
The reason for the S corp is, let's say that you're making $200,000 per year, and you're paying yourself a $100,000 or $80,000 a year salary. Well, you're going to pay income taxes and the 15.3% FICA and Medicare taxes, the self-employment taxes on that. And then you can take the rest as draws or dividends from the company that are still income taxable, but you don't have to pay the 15.3% self-employment taxes on it. So it's a way to save taxes on that 15.3% of taxes on that amount. And then from there, you can potentially run various things through that company. You could potentially run health insurance through the company that may be tax deductible. Again, that's a conversation for you to have with your CPA. You might be able to run some retirement benefits through the company as well, right? Like a SEP IRA or Simple or something like that, or maybe even a solo 401k. Again, there's different ways to do that. But again, there's potentially multiple reasons to do that. But from a financial planning perspective, and what I'm going to go through here really applies to everyone, regardless of your situation. But on the personal financial planning approach, there's what we call your financial foundation, which is basically just kind of financial planning 101 stuff. So like just stuff that everybody should make sure to have in place, right? Various insurances, your estate planning, your emergency fund, things like that. Kind of as a general rule. So like home and auto insurance, number one, make sure you have good, adequate insurance. The reason I say that is because especially when it comes to like home and auto insurance, it's usually sold on price and price alone, right? 15 minutes to save 15%. And every insurance agent on social media, hey, contact me to see if I can save you money. Nobody ever talks about what it covers, what it doesn't, if it's good, adequate coverage, and those things, right? So make sure
that's why you never sell on price.
Right. If you live by price, you'll die by price, right? But when it comes to property, home, auto insurance, make sure you have good, adequate coverage, number one. Number two, shop it out every year or two because the companies will change what risks they're willing to take on and for what price. Right. So it generally makes sense to shop it out every couple of years. And the third thing is for most people, it probably makes sense to have what's called an umbrella policy, a personal umbrella insurance policy. And it's basically personal liability insurance, right? So they're usually sold in increments of $1 million. They're cheap for what they are. But the reason I'll share a quick story, the reason that's important, we had a client earlier this year reach out to us. He got in a car wreck, killed the other driver. Reached out to us kind of about it and what he should do. So I immediately asked one of my team members, I was like, can you pull this gentleman's file to see if he got that umbrella policy that we told him to get? And so she came back after a few minutes and said, well, I see on 3 separate occasions we told him to get it. And after every meeting, we sent an email of like, here's what we talked about. Here's any information we need. Here's any action items. And then the email reminded him to get it, even provided him contact information with somebody who could help him get it. And she said, I don't see confirmation where he got it, so I'm not sure. I asked him. He wasn't sure. Come to find out, he didn't get it. He is currently in the middle of a lawsuit, which who knows how it will turn out, but probably won't be good. He makes over $1 million per year, and he's got some good savings and assets, and it may not turn out great for him. He even had the policy sitting in his email that all he had to do was sign for it.
Sign it. Nice.
But he just didn't.
It'll need a horse to water.
Yeah.
But you can't make it drink.
He just didn't. We'd be having totally different. He could have paid $600 and we would be having totally different conversation right now. Anyway, so I think most people that's worth getting. One thing that I think is important for like younger, healthy people, if you don't have ongoing medical concerns, when it comes to your health insurance, looking at, does it make sense to have a high deductible plan? That number one is the premiums are going to be lower, but number two, if it's HSA compatible, allows you to contribute to an HSA or a health savings account.
Mm-hmm.
So a health savings account, in my opinion, is one of the most valuable and underutilized retirement planning tools in existence today. And the reason I say that is because the way that they work. So an HSA is not to be confused with an FSA, a flexible spending account.
Flexible spending account, right.
They're very often confused. Don't get them confused. They're similar in some ways, but different in very important ways. So with an HSA, this year in 2023, you can contribute, if your health insurance covers you and somebody else, you and a child, you and a spouse, or you and a family, you can contribute up to $7,750 to it. Any contribution you make to it is tax deductible and will save you tax dollars this year. And then depending on who you open it up through, you can invest it. So just like you would an IRA or 401k or whatever, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, any of that. So hopefully it'll grow at a nice clip throughout the years. And then you can take that money out tax-free anytime for any qualified medical expenses, which include out-of-pocket medical expenses, vision, dental, prescription medications, even some over-the-counter medications. So the point is, the reason I call it a retirement planning tool is because statistically in retirement, your largest single expense will be health.
Medical.
Yeah. Right. If you can get a tax deduction on your contribution, invest it and have it grow tax-free, and then take it out tax-free anytime for an expense you'll inevitably have, it's the only thing in existence where the IRS allows you to never pay taxes on this money. It's a super powerful thing to have. There's even kind of an HSA hack, if you will, where So like I have an HSA, but most of my medical expenses, I just pay for out of pocket. I don't use my HSA because in my mind, it's worth it to let it sit there and grow and compound over a long period of time.
Yeah.
But if I keep the receipts for those, there's no limitation on when I can go back, how long I can go back and reimburse myself. So
Okay.
let's just say
I actually didn't know that part. That's good.
Yep.
That's good to know.
Yeah, let's just say over the next 30 years, I averaged $1,000 a year in out-of-pocket medical expenses that I just paid for out of pocket, not using the HSA. As long as I kept the receipts for those, which I would keep digitally because the physical copies sometimes will fade or rub. So keep the copies digitally. And then 30 years from now, I can go back and reimburse myself the $30,000 and take that $30,000 out tax-free for those past expenses. But it's had $30,000, 30 years to grow, and is worth way more than what I put in there, right? That's an important thing. And again, not everyone should have an HSA. That's not the right fit for everybody, but it's a good fit for more people that can take advantage of it. Yeah.
Andrew, let me ask you a question real quick
Sure.
on that. Oftentimes people get FSAs, HSAs, that kind of thing through their employer. Now, if you're self-employed, can you go out and get your own?
Yes. An FSA or an HSA?
HSA.
An HSA. Yes, you can. But the deal is you have to have a certain type of health insurance plan. You have to have a qualifying, high deductible, HSA compatible health insurance plan. So that's something that if that is something that interests you, talk to your financial planner about it, and then talk to your health insurance professional to say, all right, let's look at some HSA compatible plans. And then you and your insurance professional and you and your financial planner can take a look at those to see, does that make sense for you and which one makes the most sense and so on. And then you have to have, so if you have no health insurance, you can't contribute to an HSA. If you have health insurance, but it's not a qualifying high deductible plan that's HSA compatible, you can't contribute to an HSA. But let's say that you contributed to an HSA this year and you had a HSA compatible health insurance plan. And then next year, for whatever reason, you switch to a non-HSA compatible health insurance plan. You just can't contribute to your HSA that year, but you can still use it. Right?
Gotcha. Okay.
So you can still use it for any out-of-pocket medical expenses, but you just can't contribute to it until, let's say, the next year you switch back to an HSA compatible plan.
Gotcha. Okay. Next question is backing up a little bit. Kind of
Sure.
where you started was you brought up S Corp specifically. Okay. Now, especially in recent years, the LLC has been kind of a popular formation for various reasons.
Mhm.
Why did you single out S Corp in particular?
For the tax savings, so an LLC is potentially good for, if used correctly, asset protection, but there's no tax benefits really to speak of to an LLC because it's a pass through and any income that the LLC receives just goes directly to you. But if you have an LLC, you can choose the S election and file as an S Corp with the LLC. So you can still, if you have an LLC already, and so that's what a lot of people do. A lot of people will start with an LLC and then switch to making the S election. And again, I really, kind of caveat disclaimer with that is it really, when to file as an S Corp, really, you have to be there. And again, that's a conversation with you and your CPA.
Yeah, CPA, sure.
Right. Generally speaking, it only makes sense once you're making 100,000-ish or more. And then even still, the profitability has to be such where there's enough meat on the bone for it to make sense to pay you a salary and still have enough to take as a draw, right? Again, it's a very kind of personalized, your specific situation. So I can't just say everybody should file as an S Corp. It really depends.
Well, that's why I wanted you to clarify.
Sure.
So,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Okay. So let's do this. Tell me just as a financial advisor, are the three biggest pitfalls and mistakes you see self-employed bars make from just from a financial standpoint?
Sure.
Financial planning standpoint.
Yeah, I don't think people, kind of back to the financial foundation, I don't think people, so the way we build a financial plan, again, we start with that foundation. That's all the non-sexy stuff, man. It's insurances, it's estate planning, it's emergency fund, it's that sort of stuff, right? So everybody kind of wants to skip over that and start getting to wealth building, which is the fun stuff. So I think neglecting your financial foundation is one of the things that I see people mistakenly do. And on the foundation, I would say, especially for like self-employed people or people on commissions, having a really rock solid emergency fund, I think, is very important. And again, it's not very sexy to have a bunch of cash sitting around somewhere that isn't working. I think when it comes to your emergency fund, our kind of rules of thumb are: one, make sure you have a good, adequate emergency fund, generally 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. If you're self-employed or work on commission, I would encourage you to be closer to the 6 months. And then I think your emergency fund should be a separate account, separate from your normal checking and savings, because a lot of people will have their emergency fund kind of in their normal savings account.
Yeah, commingled it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then if you do that, there's no clear delineation on where normal savings ends and emergency savings begins. It becomes very easy to blur that line for vacations or boats or anything else that you want.
Yeah.
Having it separated out, I think, is important. And then thirdly, if we're going to have potentially tens of thousands of dollars somewhere that we hope to never have to use because we hope there's not an emergency, we want it to get all the return that it can be, but still be safe and accessible. So like find a good high yield savings account, which today high yield savings accounts are paying 4 or 5%, which nothing super exciting about 4 or 5%, but 4% is 400 times better than the 0.01% of any normal savings account, right?
Yep.
Stick it in a high yield savings account, put it over there. And if you don't have an emergency fund, or if it's not adequate where you want it to be, set an emergency fund goal and then set a plan to get that to where you want it to be. And another big mistake I see people make is not having a estate plan. I've been doing this for a dozen years, and I can count on one hand, if I was missing some fingers, how many clients that came to us to have their estate planning done and up to date. So needs to be done, at least basic. Every adult person needs at least basic estate planning, right? I don't just mean a will. I mean your will, living will, powers of attorney, both healthcare and financial, potentially a trust. So that depends on your situation, but everybody needs at least basic estate planning done. And please don't try to do it online. Pay the extra money, go see an attorney, because all these things are contingent upon this planning being done correctly. And if it's not done correctly, nobody finds out until after you die and it's too late. Right? So go to an attorney.
Of course, but then you don't care anyway.
Right. Well, your family's going to clear that, which presumably is why you did the planning to begin with. But
we can't have anybody talking bad about us after we're going, right?
Right. Right. So get it done correctly and then keep it up to date. So generally speaking, like when there's life changes, so when you have a child, if you get married or divorced, or if you move out of state, because different states have different laws on community property and things like that. Mm-hmm. So you need to update it when you move out of state, or generally every 5 years or so. I would say take it back to an estate planning attorney just to look at things, just to make sure that there haven't been any law changes and everything's still up to date. And for the people who have young adult children, so like children in college or in their 20s or something like that, it's, I think, important to realize that just because they're your children doesn't mean they're also adults, right? It's important to probably have, as soon as they turn 18, to have maybe like powers of attorney, at least, on them, and them have some basic estate planning done too, because I know a lady that her daughter got in a car. Her daughter was off in college, out of town, out of state somewhere, right? Got in a car wreck, ended up in the hospital. The only way that the mom found out was because the daughter's roommate called her to let her know. And the mom called the hospital to check to see how her daughter's doing. And they couldn't give her that information, right? Because she's an adult and there's HIPAA laws, and she couldn't even find out how her daughter's doing out of state. That's just been in a wreck, right? So, now if she had, powers of attorney, healthcare powers of attorney, or durable power of attorney, maybe she'd be able to send that to them and then they could disclose that information to her.
Yeah.
But I think that's an important thing to understand as well. So those are some very common mistakes that we see people make, and just not understanding their cash flow and how to be efficient with their income. Right. So I think most people are like, well, I'm doing good things. I'm saving, I'm investing, I'm paying down debts, but I'm not really sure if what I'm doing is like if I'm doing it in the most efficient way, and if what I'm doing is helping me reach my goals in the most efficient way, right? So how you manage and prioritize debt, how you save and invest, how you manage taxes, both in the short term and long term, and just being efficient with the dollars that you have, because we only have so many dollars. We want to be as efficient with those as possible, is very important. And sometimes, particularly for younger people, when we run our cash flow analyses, like it doesn't take, usually it's not huge changes we're making. It's like, well, if you're doing these things, if we tweak this and change that and tweaked that over a multi-decade period of time and just got more efficient with it, like sometimes it makes an enormous difference on kind of the end dollar amount, the tax efficiency, and just overall kind of their financial health, so to speak. Just being efficient with the money that's coming in and being mindful and understanding the best utilization of your dollars that you have is another thing that I see people struggle with.
Okay. All right. So let's shift gears as we kind of come to a close. One of the big things that kind of, or that's been a theme in what you've talked about, is the inclusion of other parties, other professions in a kind of totality, helping out a customer, right? So for all my salespeople out there, especially mortgage, real estate, financial, whatever, the importance of having a good referral network is really important, obviously. Right. So as a financial planner, what are a couple of the key attributes that you look for before your name on the line and refer somebody out to a CPA, an attorney, whatever the case may be?
Yeah, so we have various types of attorneys and CPAs on our team, like a part of our financial planning team. They're all what's considered non-writing. So they're not like, we're not going to file anybody's taxes. If one of our attorneys say that you need to create an LLC or a trust or something, they're there for here's what you should do, here's why, here's how to do it. You still have to see an attorney.
That's the actual execution of it.
Right. I say that to say we always put a second set of eyes on clients' tax returns. We'll have one of our tax attorneys review tax returns for the clients. We're not filing their tax returns. We're not doing their taxes, but we're putting a second set of eyes on that. Any estate planning or business planning documents that they have, we'll have either one of our estate planning attorneys or corporate attorneys put a second set of eyes on that. So I say that to say we're kind of, double checking the work that our CPAs and attorneys are doing that we're referring clients to. So number one, the quality of their work is obviously extraordinarily important.
Now, so if you've had somebody come to you and your in-house folks review, it's garbage, you're obviously not going to be referring them out.
Yeah, man. We have.
Has that ever happened?
We've ran into some stuff that, so a lot of people are like, well, I work with a CPA. I got this stuff taken care of, or I had an attorney do this. I have this should be taken care of. And again, just like any other profession, there's a world of difference between great ones and not great ones. As a quick kind of funny story, we had some business owners. There was 3 owners. They brought us in to help them do some business planning. And part of that was like their buy-sell planning with the business. And we reviewed their operating agreement that had some of the buy-sell language in there. And one of the attorneys on our team was like, hey, who did this document? Did they do it themselves? I was like, I don't know. This is just what we requested from them. We got this, and I don't know who did it. And they're like, all right, well, an attorney surely did not do this, so they must have done it themselves, but it needs to be redone, right? In the next meeting with them, I had to try to find a tactful way to be like, hey guys, who did this? Did y'all do this? And they were like, no, so-and-so's friend did it. I was like, all right, is he an attorney? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, does he specialize in this, or what type of law does he do? And they're like, no, I think he does real estate law or something like that. And I'm like, okay. Because our attorneys said that they can't imagine.
Contract law is a little different.
Right. I was like, our attorneys said that an attorney could not have done this, right? So I was like, it needs to be redone. And we've seen tax returns that are just like, we can't believe a professional did these because they just miss big things, or there's pretty obvious IRS audit red flags on there, or just kind of generally it is pretty bush league. So we've seen that. So the quality of work is very important for the professionals that you're using, but also the proactivity and the responsiveness of the professionals, right? If they're very good at what they do, but their customer relations or just communication or any of that sucks, it's hard to So we've had some professionals that we refer people to. They were like, hey, I tried reaching out to this person's office, reached out to them multiple times and haven't heard back from them. So we're moving on.
That's a terrible feeling.
Yeah, that sucks. And so I have to have conversations with those professionals like, hey, man, like, what's going on? We need you to get with it. We can't send you people. So,
okay. Well, that helps me out there. Sorry. Lastly, and most importantly, of course, how can the listeners, if they want to talk to you about anything financial advising related, how can they get a hold of you, man?
Sure. Our website is atlasfinancialstrategies.com, ATLAS financialstrategies.com. We have just in the last couple of weeks, we've started a YouTube page. I think we had 5 videos up so far. We got dozens in the works that are being edited and stuff like that, and a couple hundred more to come that we'll end up filming. So it's don't judge us too hard on the lack of, it's brand new, but
hey, listen, my show just went on YouTube. They're raw video. I understand what you're saying.
Okay. All right. So we're building it out. It's more to come, but the content we put on there is just meant to be educational and helpful. We get good feedback on the videos the couple videos we do have on there. But yeah, feel free to, if there's anything we can help with, reach out to us. We're happy to help. And I know we're running up on time, but Skip, I really appreciate you.
Oh yeah, man. It's my pleasure. This is good because this is something different that I haven't had on the show before. That's really, really important for all the different professions and the way that people get paid. Business. It's good information. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some of this info with me.
I'm happy to do it.
All right, man. Well, listen, thanks for coming on and you have a great day. All right.
Thanks, Skip. You too.